you're totally solo deving it, aren't you?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. At the moment, at least, I don't know how it will go, but that's how it is right now.
it's been I can assume it's been a little bit of an undertaking.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I don't have, it's not like sometimes you see these posts. Oh, I quit my job, I sold my everything, and now I'm
uh,
betting all of. I'm not one of them people, and I don't
yeah.
have all kind of. It's not all the action in one basket. I have a like I'm not a full-time solo dev. I'm working full-time, and this is my project. And also for me, it's not new because I mean we can go a bit in detail because actually I've done this. Well, I've kind of done a similar game like more than 20 years ago when I was
Mm,
an undergrad student. Obviously, it was much simpler and all that, but I was
right.
all doing it on my own as well back
Yeah.
then, and I've done it. So for me, again, it's not like totally new, unique thing. And back then as well, it was like you had to do everything yourself. So,
Mm,
like write every line of code. There were no
right. Right.
assets. So yeah, I mean, one of the challenges is just trying to think what I really need in this game, what's necessary, what's not. Really trying to stay focused because there's all sorts of ideas, there's all sorts of things I kind of could experiment with, but
Yeah.
I have to be quite brutal. And in a way, it's
Yeah.
also means kind of maybe it's a bit less exciting, at least from kind of people who are looking from outside, because obviously I mean, we can talk about the game a bit, but for me, the thing that started it all was, original Fallout games,
Yes, of course. Yeah.
which kind of really sort of, got me really interested in this genre, in
Hmm.
sort of kind of how do you create this kind of thing, what goes behind, and I'm okay just sort of even, taking the game mechanics, from whatever the game was released like 30, not 30,
Yeah.
but they started development 30 years ago, pretty much, and they
Yeah.
and even cutting this down because even back then it was big game, big team,
Yeah.
and you can listen to the original how the development process was going. Even back then they were putting a lot of crazy hours, and people were working around the clock, and that was a massive team. So I understand that I'm not oh like I'll do it on my own, just
Yeah.
in short time.
Well,
So yeah, in a
I
way,
think
yeah.
I was just going to add to that real quick. I think one of the things that is, compared to then versus now is just like the tools to our disposal
Hmm.
make it so, because I'm not going to say it makes it easier to be a solo
Oh
dev,
yeah, I
but
mean it
it,
it, it is it
yeah,
is it's
in
definitely.
a
I mean that's
way,
the reason there's like 30,000 games released on Steam every year now because it's so much
right,
easier
right.
now.
And so like the tools and the engines and all the different things that are out there now have made it so the games that were made, like, original Fallout and things like that, that the way that they were made, because they didn't have an engine necessarily.
Hmm.
They had to basically build all of their tools and build the game at the exact same time, compared to now you can kind of, I'm assuming, where are you building in Unity?
Yeah, yeah, it's all Unity.
So that's the thing, like Unity, offers a lot to
Oh yeah.
developers as far as just being able to build. And so like that's kind of the thing, is just like, yeah, now it's the time needed to build something like a Fallout is can be much shorter
Oh
because
yeah.
of the tools and
100%. Yeah,
technology.
yeah.
Sorry,
I
go ahead. I
mean
didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, it's I mean obviously totally valid points, and that's one of the reasons why, because I kind of done it in a much smaller scope and all that, much simpler, many years ago, and then uh, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I was working on my own. It was taking very long time to do anything to get it out. And then, okay, I'm done. I understand what the process is, and I kind of focused on some kind of smaller projects
Hmm.
after that. And then, kind of life started and job and all that. And then, but it was just kind of, and also because back then I had a very, very old computer that was running like Windows 95,
Oh boy.
DOS. And yeah, and because even back then it was a very old kind of rubbish computer, um,
Yeah.
and but it's also kind of what helped me finish it, because if I had the new one, I was like, why the hell am I doing this? I could be
Yeah.
playing like with 3D, I could be doing, I could be playing other games because, but I just couldn't because I didn't have,
Right.
I had a very,
You were your scope was force limited based
yeah,
off of what you
exactly.
had available to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And even when I later, I like actually kind of, when I was maybe, I don't know, 60% done, I got a better computer, but I was like, you know what, since I've already done so much, I want to finish it. I want to kind of make a
Mm.
kind of proper game. Not I'm just dumping it midway. So even then I had a better computer. I was still, kind of going the old way. I just trying to make sure that it's like I have full endings, I have all the characters. Um, but yeah, basically, I was thinking over the years, I was kind of thinking about it. Oh, but now it's kind of hard to run it, and and it's so outdated, and I thought initially the way the project started, because also when I was developing this, because as you referred to, like back then you also had to develop a lot yourself. So, and it
Yeah.
started like I was just writing some code to draw a sprite, and then and
Right.
then scrolling, blah blah, and then for the game I actually created my own scripting language, because one of the strong things in Fallout was always the non-linear storytelling, the
Right.
branching dialogues, so and I was developing this. It was like, oh, you had to write this all in code, and I was like, no way. And so I created my own sort of small scripting language, and so
Oh
most
wow.
of the actual game logic and all that stuff is in this, because most of it is just about making sure you can very efficiently describe all these branches and some variables, so that it's it was kind of relatively straightforward to create these dialogues and kind of link different things together. So I thought over the years, like, because I already got the scripting language, I just need to port this kind of language and add some bits and bobs. So that's how I started. Like, okay, I'll just take this to Unity, so I'll port the scripting language to C Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done this, kind of the basics will work. And then I started looking at my text that I wrote, and they were just, horrible. Because, back then and also because, it's in the days when, doing this kind of walls of text in RPGs and like lore dumps was
Yeah.
normal. But you look at this now, like, nobody's going to ever read this. I'm reading this and I'm kind of blushing. Like, this is,
Mhm.
always, I was an undergrad student, and I was not really into writing,
Right.
or being very interested in drama, or
Yeah.
script writing. So I created things that I was inspired by books and games, but I look
Yeah.
at it, and so there are some kind of good aspects, but there's just like, because also you need to work, on dialogues, on characters, their
Right.
backgrounds, their speech characteristics. So I've also, and so as I looked at this, like, okay, this all needs to be kind of thrown away, but I was still very attached to the setting, because I think one of the things that sort of distilled out is the setting, and the setting was
Right.
inspired a lot by this kind of Eastern Bloc environment where when Soviet Union collapsed, there were all these republics around it, and
Mm-hmm.
there were all sorts of conflicts, and also, for instance, there were civil wars. So and I think, when I was a kid in the 90s, it's all this kind of was around, and also when Soviet Union collapsed, there were all sorts of kind of weird political issues and
Right.
wars, and it was kind of, and why one of the reasons probably Fallout was so popular in the Eastern Bloc is because it all kind of felt very familiar, because in a way, when Soviet Union collapsed, it's also this kind of post-apocalyptic where you have some kind of
It
remnants of this
basically
old
was
empire.
Fallout.
Yeah, I mean,
Like which
obviously it's exaggerated to a large extent, but in a
well after
way it was.
Chernobyl, man.
Yeah, that's obviously another thing that kind of sparked a lot of other games and inspirations for
Right,
lores.
right.
But yeah, the idea was that the setting, I thought the setting was still quite interesting, and so I was just trying to leave some characters. So basically, I'm just trying to, and then I've done some courses actually specifically focused, on game narrative,
Mm-hmm.
on world building. So I was just trying to kind of not just focus on the technical side, but trying to make sure. I mean, I'm hoping I will need to work with some probably freelancers. I can't really hire anyone, but I want to really
I heard Chat GPT.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's a good
I'm just
starting point, like to
yeah.
bounce off some ideas, because it's like some, where they have the writer's block, where sometimes, okay,
Right.
so where do I start? And sometimes, okay, you throw some ideas, and it's like, okay, play. I think it's a good starting point, but I think I don't know how it will be in a few years. At the moment, it's still not exactly there to come
Mm-hmm.
up with original, interesting, intriguing ideas. I think it's good to kind of get your, so juices flowing, so to say,
Yeah.
just to get some kind of ideas that this will spark something else. But at
Yeah.
this point, yeah, I mean, I think it's good to kind of to bounce off some ideas and get a bit of inspirations. But I have a few kind of people I was keeping an eye on who kind of did something that I liked in the past. So I
Yeah.
want to do that, but I want to first create the kind of ground where I have some things, and then maybe I want somebody to review it, kind of have their ideas, and then just come up with some kind of hybrid
Yeah.
solution.
I mean, it's really neat because like obviously the aesthetic is so like yeah, very it's dark. It's very like clearly you're not over you're using very muted colors on all the graphics. And actually that was one of the questions. How as far as model, did you do all the
Mm.
modeling or are
No,
these
no, that's one of
assets
the
you
good. Yeah,
purchased?
yeah. It's a mix. I would say
Hmm.
it's a bit of a mix where obviously I buy whatever assets I can get that I'm I because I have an idea. Okay, I want this kind of building. This so it's a mixture. So I'm getting all sorts of assets, and also because it's a lot, as I mentioned, it's Eastern Bloc. I don't want to say it's like oh, it happens in this country. It's a fictional country, but
Right, right, right,
anybody can sort of recognize, oh, that doesn't look like US, oh, like people
right,
from Eastern Bloc, they would recognize a lot of, like car models, some buildings, kind of comic blocks, and
right.
then some of them, yeah, I modeled a few things and I've done quite a few textures. So in general, yeah, the idea is that it's kind of green, but not kind of post-apocalyptic as in Fallout,
Hmm.
but some kind of, well, where it's not too far from it, but where you can feel something is collapsing, that it's and also because the whole thing with dystopian country where you can see
Yeah,
it's not like everybody is living the happiest life, and it's prosperity and wealth everywhere. You can sort of see
right.
through environment that the system is kind of, maybe it's seen better days, and it's definitely struggling, and that there's sort of a lot of, yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't want to just kind of I'm not a fan of fantasy settings, so for me, I don't want to make it too kind of grim as well. But in a way, yeah, I also will
Right.
have, the idea is to have different areas, locations, where you're closer to the borders, it's all kind of more grim and more run down. When you're closer to
Mhm.
the capital, you can see there's kind of more modern stuff, more infrastructure. You can see there's a bit more kind of wealth around these places where the elites are actually located.
Yeah. How long, have we been, working on this at this point?
Yeah.
Outside of what your first version of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
mean this version of it, like, how
yeah. So this
what
version,
would you
so
say?
the thing is, I mean, it's been now over 5 years because,
Wow.
but the trouble is, it was very non-linear because, like, for instance, I started when I just picked, original, and I thought this, I just gonna convert my maps and I'm just gonna create the scripting language. So I've done that in a couple of months. The basics were in. You could
Yeah.
walk around. You could talk to characters. The scripts were working. And then like, okay, okay, I need more animations, I need better
Uh-huh.
maps. And then the trouble is also because, yeah, because I work as a software developer, my daytime
Mhm.
job, and it's kind of a bit of a startup situation where sometimes I just have to work a lot of overtime, I have to travel. So I mean, it's one of the things I mentioned, like you have the survey before, and I mean, sometimes I've just not touched it literally for months. And then
Wow.
also, I mean, I grew up in Russia. I don't live in
Mhm.
Russia for years. Like I moved long ago. But then the war started in 2022, and although, like,
Mhm.
obviously for me it was nothing like for people in Ukraine, even for people in Russia who were involved one way or another. But it
Mm.
really kind of shocked me, and also it kind of, yeah. I mean, I just like was shocked, and I was like doing just a lot of doom scrolling, and I just, on one hand, I kind of hardly had motivation. On the other, the game is kind of about this sort of situation
Yeah.
where you have these conflicts building up, you have sort of different sides, and then sometimes it's just enough to, because even this war, a lot of it kind of roots goes back to the Soviet Union, collapse of the
Right.
Soviet Union, then it goes further, but you can see that it kind of, the big cracks kind of, it's where this all really kind of has a lot of its roots. So on the
Yeah.
other hand, I thought, well, this is kind of, I really want to continue doing this. I really want to get this to a place where I can also talk about some of the serious subjects. not just sort of, yeah, fantasizing, go whatever, save the kingdom. It's about kind of. I also want the uh, I mean, one of the strong mediums, obviously, or about RPGs that you can show different sides, and
Right.
I think it's part of it where I
You can
think
play
it's
neutral.
kind
You can play a more neutral
yeah,
observer in a way.
yeah, but that's the thing, because actually someone, when somebody was asking like, oh, you mentioned dystopian country, is it going to be another thing? Oh yeah, the revolutionary thing, and you're going to bring happiness and
Sometimes there's
justice.
no happiness.
Yeah, exactly, and
Sometimes
that's the
it's a
whole.
stalemate. Sometimes it's just one party's not happy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's yeah. I mean, that's. I'm curious the direction you are kind of going with that. Are you going more of obviously not a happier ever after type of?
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of it is actually, kind of gray morality, where
Mm,
okay, even if you think that you made the choice, okay, maybe it was good in this situation, but you will see the consequences. I mean, even the
yeah.
original Fallout, they had a lot of it, and I think part of it why it was actually quite raising some of the
Yep.
serious ones. Where, for instance, this example, where you go in a city, and they have this corrupt kind of gangster style mob who kind of runs it and has casinos. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
this kind of sheriff character. So, the trope of the kind of sheriff. So you help the sheriff, for instance, you get rid of the mob and you think you're a good guy. Well done. And then you find out that actually the city, just like this town, just was run down because when they had no casino, there was no business, there was nothing going
Yep.
on, and
And
kind of
now
just
everyone,
died
yeah.
out.
I love that.
And yeah,
I love the morally gray. Like obviously like one of those games the first time that I played what's it called? God damn. I'm not going to remember. The
yeah,
Last of
but
Us,
what
the
what
first time
type?
I played yeah, the first time I played The Last of Us, like how
Mm,
morally gray it kind of plays like just as
mm,
far as yo, you got to either eat or let that or save that person. Like, what are you if you save that person, then now you have another mouth to feed. Or like, what are you gonna do? Like, are
mm,
you got to protect your family? Or are you
yeah.
gonna, So it's like you got to play the line of like when, especially in like really harsh environment, you got to make decisions that, of course, in an abundant world and an abundant land and things like that, where things are plentiful and there's law and all that stuff, it's easy to make the right decision or what you would perceive to be the right or good decision. But in these areas that are a little bit more dystopian and a little bit more gray, and there's a lot more nuance. And in that case, for instance, you got the crime boss who's, running a casino. Well, the only money that's coming into the town where the people actually can thrive is because of the casino. So then you
Yeah,
gotta kinda have to weigh your options. Okay, well, do you get rid of the crime and let everyone die from poverty, or do you kinda let the bad guy do his thing? I mean, it's a tough call.
yeah. And I mean, I know that not everybody likes it because I know, for instance, also there was, there's an interesting thing that I mentioned. Fallout was quite popular in Eastern Europe and Russia, and there are people still creating mods for the original one,
Mhm.
like, and they're very good actually because so for one of them, called Fallout Sonora, and they have a lot of it where they have all the different factions and kind of each, and they're not trying to present like, oh, I'm just the evil guy, I'm gonna kill everyone just because I hate the world. It's just okay, they have their own agenda, they have their own ideas that
Mhm.
obviously, I mean, it's like, they say no sort of evil character thinks he is evil. He's got his own motivation, he's got his
Of
own
course.
point of view, his own opinion. So that's the idea. Just but I know not because obviously it depends on the sort of target audience. Some people play it because exactly they want to escape because our world is also not always very clear. So they want to, hey, I want to this power fantasy where I'm the good guy and I'm saving it from whatever powers of evil.
But
And
that's a fantasy. That's the whole thing. That's exactly what a fantasy is it's so clear cut what's good, what's evil. It's the paradigm of what's very easy to see. But when you start to look at the real world, things get a much more in the gray because you're right, people have their own motivations and things like that. And sometimes you may not agree with their motivations, but their motivation is either what to protect their own people, to protect whatever they have or things like that or to grow. It could be who knows what their decisions are. And yeah, I mean I think I think it's interesting. I think it's so when you were coming up with this type of uh like these types of paradigms, and building your script or your whole, because essentially it's got to be all done through dialogue more or
Hmm.
less
Yeah,
to
most of it.
express these types of things. Like uh what is that that code or that I guess in a way that script look like when organizing all those dialogue pieces?
Yeah, so the idea is it's you have sort of variables, and I
Yeah.
try to have like state variables where depending on what what you say, who you talk to, what kind of quest you pick, and what you do at the back of it. It's all tracked, so that yeah, all your sort of small decisions or kind of the choices you make in this dialogues, they then others sort of can see them, as
Hmm.
in and opens up some new dialogue choices when you're talking to other characters, opens up new locations you can go to. um and I mean, yeah, the idea is obviously that there's this still obviously idea that a lot of it, you kind of have three basic sides, where you have the sort of, you can join the the sort of law enforcement in this, and it's like, well, okay, maybe it's a good cause, maybe we need more order, I see it's falling apart, somebody needs to keep it all in order. We shouldn't let the criminals, maybe you just hate this all and you want to join the guys who are trying to, maybe throw a bit of a rebellion, or maybe they're trying to sabotage, or maybe, and
Mm.
then I'm still working on the line where, you're just kind of trying to solve your own problems, so you're
Okay.
trying to kind of stay out of it, like whatever's happening, I've got my own issues here, I've got my own life to live. And I mean, I've got a few options there. I'm still a bit kind of, that's what I'm saying, that I'd like to, still maybe talk to some, guys who kind of, well, more experienced in this than me, in terms of I have a few options
Yeah.
that, just again for this, because like, I know there's also this trope where, oh, there's the family business, whatever, you got to find your whatever father, son, wife. So along these lines, and also because I need this kind of character be kind of blank slate-ish, in a way that he is not
Right.
really because you need to be able to introduce the player to the world, to the rules, to how it all works. So, it's basically kind of, he's coming to this country, but he has some old ties to it. And, maybe he's just trying to, yeah, basically find someone that, is, or maybe, because now he is in such deep trouble where he used to live, that his only chance is like to survive is find, someone from his family who could kind of help him, shelter him, during all of this kind
Right.
of hardships, in his life. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's the kind of the thing where, okay, you can try and do that, or you can just, what, I don't care about them. I'll just take this side, that side, whoever, they will help me, and they will, they will be on my, they will be my way to get where I want to be. So then you can
Hmm.
make this, and that's kind of the overarching thing, where at least you kind of have this sort of, are you neutral? Are you on one side? Are you on another? And there will be interconnected sort of quests and storylines that all develop in different ways depending on what you're doing there.
Yeah. And just to let you know, I have another screen. That's why I keep looking over here, and I'm looking
Yeah,
at your game as you're telling me,
yeah,
as you're
no
talking
worries.
about. So that's why, like, if you keep seeing me look over, it's because I'm like, I'm looking at like, some of the screenshots and just the
All
video
right.
playing in the background, and just
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at like, some of the stuff you have up. And uh one of the things that I think probably might have been a challenge is I mean, once you get into the combat system, your grid system,
Mm-hmm.
it's obvious it's a turn, I'm assuming it's like a
Yeah,
turn-based
yeah, yeah.
type of
I
grid.
really, I'm struggling with it. I like, personally, like, I'm not a big fan of action RPGs where you just have to keep
Uh-huh.
clicking. And also because
Right.
one of the things, yeah, it is turn-based, but the whole idea is that, I mean, why I also in the trailer, in the screenshots, I'm not actually attracting a lot of attention to combat, because I don't want this to be kind of tactical RPG. I mean, I want this
Right.
to be more a narrative one, and where,
Right.
again, you have a lot of options even to avoid any combat, where if you want to have a character who is more about, kind of lies, persuasion,
Mhm.
empathy, you actually don't have to do it. That's why I didn't want to give this false impression. Oh, this is going to be about a lot of combat. And again, if you're thinking, because obviously Fallout's got its own setting, which the setting where it's kind of a bit of a Wild West, really, in the future, where
Right.
everyone for himself. While in this one, like, if you think a dystopian country, the setting dictates that it has to be different. You can't just imagine in North Korea, you walk in streets, with a pistol and like shooting
Yeah.
random people. Like, yeah, good luck
I'm a
with that.
cowboy. Pow, 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 pow.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that like when half of the country is, military, people in the service, and there's like secret police all over the place. Yeah, good luck.
Right.
I'll see how far you'll get. So, obviously, combat is in there. Just because I also think, in terms of the core game loop, I think it just kind of adds a bit of fun because if you're just walking around talking to people, for instance, like, okay, Disco Elysium managed to pull it, but they had amazing writers. They've had great guys. So whenever somebody
Right.
says like, oh, I will be whatever Disco Elysium, whatever, with this twist, it's just okay. Well, it's going to be very, very challenging because I
Hmm.
think even for me, like, I think writing was great ideas, role play system, but just sometimes kind of felt a bit bored because just you call it, you just walk around, talk, walk around, talk, walk around, talk,
Hmm.
and
Well, in a lot of
and when you have this
games,
extra thing where potentially you want to have a bit of combat, like exploration, and some of this kind of inventory management from looting,
right.
whatever you get, just adds a bit of, just kind of, okay, let me release the steam, let me just
Yeah.
switch off for a bit, and then okay, I'll go back. But if you just constantly bombarded with this content you
Mhm.
have to read, and also because emotionally it's very heavy as well,
Right.
it's like, yeah, I mean, I think they managed to pull it, but I think it was very, very unique. So
Right.
yeah, I know, like, I won't be able to, to on my budget and my, with my own skills, I won't be able to pull anything like that. So
Yeah.
um, that's why I want.
Well, and it just helps breaking the games up as far as like you were just talking about your loop. It's like you sit there, you talk, you talk, you talk. Maybe you move some stuff in your inventory, then you move, then you go from this point, and then all of a sudden you get
Yeah,
into maybe a little scuffle with somebody. You shoot a guy, you pick up their loot, you go back over, you find out it's like so. It's like like building the arc of the journey as well, and making it if it's just talking to one person after another, it's like, yeah, like it can get I mean, in nature that is very repetitive. Obviously there's an outlier.
yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what, yeah, Disco Elysium is. It is. It's. I mean, it's beautiful. It's great. But I think,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Good luck trying to repeat this.
Well, just the game of the art, there's so many elements that play into that
Yeah,
game's
yeah. I mean, a
factors
lot of things
anyway.
come together. So
Yeah, and so it's like, obviously the art's amazing in that game too. So it's just an amazing thing to look at all the time. And then there's just so many factors that play into that game. So it's like, and I'm not sad. Do you even know how big the team was when they made that game? It had
oh,
to
I
not.
think I just know at some point I mean, overall they had like 20, 30 writers, who are like freelancers
Right,
working. So yeah, and I know they obviously they had, different developers. I
right.
mean, but obviously a lot of it is text. So I think, yeah, and the size of text in this game is just insane. I think it just beats
Right.
War and Peace. And the problem is obviously with it is that I think probably most people don't see like 90%, maybe not, I don't know, like 70% of content just because it's behind some skill
Probably.
checks,
Yeah, yeah.
And even I wonder how many people actually finished the game because obviously kind of everybody maybe, kind of tried it, had a look just to kind of what is everyone talking about, but getting to the end of it, I'm not sure a lot of
Mm.
people actually
So
fulfilled.
what's our goal? What's our plan with this game, and when's our are we thinking about a demo, and then
Oh
what's
yeah, I
our
mean, yeah, I
very, very
definitely,
rough release
yeah.
potential?
So I'm actually, so my current job, like I mentioned, because it's really been quite demanding, exhausting. So I'm
Mhm.
actually trying to reduce my hours there as well. I'm trying to be a bit more serious about this one because I mean I was
Mhm.
doing it as a hobby, but I think as it was kind of going along, I saw a bit more potential. I had more ideas.
Right.
So I mean,
It's grown to be more than a little bit than of a
yeah, because initially I
side
thought that,
project hobby.
yeah, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I mean, in terms of like financial, I don't really expect this. I mean, to me, I see it as my own sort of still, like some people, whatever, they play in a band, maybe they write some music, but they know, well, I'm not gonna be the guy, who's gonna be touring the world, and everybody's. So for me, it's more like I really have this in me. It's like I can't get out of my head, so I really want to create it and get it to a state where I can say, okay, well, it's complete game where you can play it. So in terms of the demo, I mean, I'm hoping to have a demo next year, really. And I
Oh,
mean, you
wow.
you really because I mean, I'm I would say I'm not that far from like a basic vertical slice because a lot of systems are in. Obviously, I did cut quite a few corners in terms of code, and some setup, just because I'm not trying to create, an idea or whatever thing that's nice. And I'm not doing this for the code for the sake of
Mm,
learning, how to
right.
create a game and make a nice,
Uh,
extensible framework that I can use. It's more just I have this setting, I have this idea,
mhm,
and for me, and like for a lot of indies, I think the there's much higher probability you will never finish it and you'll never release rather than, oh, the code will be ugly and buggy. So for
mhm,
now, I'm cutting a lot of corners here. So I know I may have to kind of pay the price down the line, but for now, I'm not that far from kind of having a basic vertical slice where, the systems are in, I have different locations, scenes, characters, the kind of the basics of the scripting, are working. Like some animations are in, inventory,
mhm.
um, basic combat works. Obviously, like there's hardly any AI, but it's not. Again, I hope I can use some of the assets as well and just kind of
What I've
repurpose them.
what I've told people, I'm like, "Who it doesn't matter what your code looks like. Nobody's ever gonna see it.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Well,
could look like whatever you want."
yeah. I mean, I understand. Like it's a technical that where okay, at some point I want to extend something, I want to change it. Like, oh, maybe
Yeah,
it could be just a simple thing, but now I have to go and whatever redo this, and I had to do it a few times already, but it's at this point I'm accepting this that because I just want to
yeah,
get at the point where things are working. I can see the whole thing coming together. I can walk around. So, and obviously, I mean, I'll try to get probably to some of these sort of indie like showcase events.
yeah,
Maybe I'll just try to go to like in person to some conference. Um, Again, just to get feedback, maybe kind of talk. I know there are sometimes some publishers. I'm not sure I want to kind of have a publisher. I'm not
yeah,
sure any publisher, obviously with the current financial situation as well, will be interested that much. Because also I understand it's a bit of a niche game. It's sort of, it's got relatively, I think, um, well, limited appeal, I think, to kind of mainstream audience, but
mhm,
that's okay with me. And yeah, so I'll see what's out there, but I'm fine to kind of try and get it to a point that, obviously I'm really interested in feedback. I'll need to collect feedback. So the demo is a must, and I mean, and now also it's the kind of one of the strong tools on Steam to get wish lists as
yeah.
well, because you get a bit of exposure. Uh, and yeah, again, feedback because I know obviously I've got my own judgment, but I need to listen to people as well. And again, some things I just have to say like no, that's the way it is. But some like I know I can't trust my judgment,
Yeah.
on some things
Well,
because yeah, yeah,
there's the obvious things that are like, if if they get to a point in the game or let's say somewhere in the beginning and they're like people just can't find the thing that they were supposed to find, like, well, maybe I hit it too well.
yeah,
The things like that obviously that
yeah,
you
yeah.
can
But then you will
adjust and
always,
stuff.
yeah, but then you will always have some places it's too easy. Why? Like, why are you hand holding me?
Yeah, I guess you
Yeah,
find the balance where the majority of the voices go. But I mean, yeah, you're right. It is a balance because then you look at like games that don't hold your hand at all. They just say, "Go for it,
yeah.
figure it
And
out."
there's a niche for this because
And if you
people want that.
fail,
Yeah,
you don't want to don't play my game. And
yeah,
those games have gone off to be very successful. Like
yeah.
I think of or like Demon Souls when it first came out
Hmm.
and how it is very unforgiving and it did not hold your hand. And it turned a lot of people off early on, like early on. Even the original like Monster Hunter. The first
Hmm.
one, yeah, I still think I have like the Game Informer, which was like GameStop
Hmm. Yeah,
sold like a
yeah,
magazine. Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
They sold that magazine. And I remember I think I don't have it anymore, but I remember the review it got when it first came out. It was like 6.3 or 6.5. It was basically a hated it. Everyone hated this game, the first Monster Hunter. And because it didn't hold your hand, it was just like, go ahead, play the game now. And it was kind of a lot for people to kind of take on, and they hated it. And now you look at Monster Hunter and it's like this behemoth. It's just this massive game, and everyone likes to pretend like it was this greatest game ever made. I was like, dude, it was not like that. I love that game, but like
Mm.
A lot of people did not like that game when it first came out, and so you kinda play the balance, but I don't know, I feel like if you're gonna be unforgiving, you almost have to look at it at the long run. You're like, "Okay, it's gonna take a while for people to get a hang of it, and, I'm okay with just letting it sit there and figuring things out." And maybe this is that type of game in a way, potentially, not holding hands and letting it be unforgiving,
Mm.
and, just
Yeah, I mean, I
let
think,
things roll.
yeah, because I think personally for me, I I don't want to be unforgiving or anything. I mean, I think my first kind of priority is sort of more interesting narrative, something kind of thought
Mm,
provoking. So, and although, for instance, like War of Mine, the game where you're struggling as a civilian during the Civil War, it is kind of struggling and suffering is part of the experience, right? And it kind of makes you feel really bad, like some of the stories you mentioned, like with Gray Morale, like you break into someone's apartment because you're starving, and there's an old couple, and like, are you gonna steal from them and let them die, or are you
oh,
just gonna
wow.
your character is gonna die? It's like,
Wow, yeah.
so I'm not necessarily, maybe I don't want to kind of push it that too far, but I mean, I don't want to kind of people suffer as in like, because whatever they have to go and whatever defeat some boss and
You
nobody
want them
knows.
to emotionally suffer.
Yeah, to an extent, I guess. Yeah, but not like, oh, because I have to spend 10 hours to understand how to. No, I mean, and again, because I think my target audience, I think, is more older kind of gamers who have
Mm,
limited time on their hands. So,
yeah,
I myself, like, if like, I still haven't tried like Baldur's Gate 3 because
yeah,
people say like, oh, you have to put like whatever 50, 70, 100 hours, and like
yeah,
why should I even start? I watched some YouTube videos, and then, like,
yeah,
and I know I haven't really experienced it, but it just, I don't want this to be long. I want somebody to try and experience
yeah.
it and be able to complete. And again, because it kind of plays to my advantage in a way, because in a solo dev, I won't be able to create a long game unless it's just going to be bunch of fetch quests, where you spend like 50% of time just walk from one side of the map to the other.
Yeah,
I don't want
yeah.
that. I want to also respect the player in terms of like, I don't want you to sit here just because I want to
Yeah.
achieve higher play time.
So,
So
it
yeah.
so how has been, how has been response from the community as far as, because
Yeah.
obviously I found you on Reddit, and
Yeah, yeah,
what I saw I thought was super interesting. I mean, I like the grungy, I like the post up, it's not post, it's,
yeah.
uh,
I mean, I know probably a lot of people kind of would think of it as a bit past Apple because it kind of looks like Fallout, and it's sort of,
yeah,
and also because everything's kind of washed out a bit and greyish.
yeah, why,
But
there
yeah,
you go, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
How
And obviously,
how
yeah,
has been the response
yeah. I
from
would
the
say in
community?
general, obviously, I mean, I didn't get a lot of responses like, "Oh, this post went viral," and I knew it wouldn't, because it's not one of them where you put some GIF and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, it looks so fun." I think I where people were responding, where they kind of really, if I was getting responses, it would be mainly positive ones. I mean, I was
Mm,
also asking people for a bit of feedback, where a few things already identified where, oh, I didn't like this bit, which I'm working on. Um, so I think, yeah, in general, it was pretty positive. The danger here, I think, is that it's a trailer, so obviously I tried to put kind of the best parts, and I obviously I spent
right,
quite a bit of time trying to kind of put the best bits in there, where some people, they just get their sort of own ideas about what the game is like, and
mm,
everybody kind of thinks about oh, this feature will be in there or there, and yeah, I think that's a bit of a danger, where people could just kind of in their head, come up, oh, this is that's what I'm going to be doing, and I've had some people where they go kind of trying to imagine what the game is like.
mhm,
So, but I would say, yeah, in general, where I think I still need. I mean, I also try to go to some sort of niche, forums, like websites where people who are playing RPGs are discussing things, and like that. There are a few kind of known toxic communities, but even there, it was sort of pretty positive, I would say. So
yeah,
obviously, people saying like, yeah, it doesn't look very modern, blah blah, but there it's
yeah,
mainly. But there's also the problems, obviously. Yeah, what I was saying, a bit of a danger where, well, when I'm trying to, although it's a role playing game, but I don't want to be this kind of min max game where you spend like 2 hours just trying to figure out the build of your character. So I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's that's where I was referring back to in Fallout, where I'm even trying to cut out some things from the Fallout series. Like, do I really need sneaking? Like, do I really need some of this kind of where you can repair things and some kind of crafting? Do I really need that? Like,
Yeah.
what? Because if I can cut it out, it reduces my scope significantly.
Oh,
And
yeah.
not just in terms of implementation, just in terms of, because then you need to kind of think about, oh well, okay, you have the skill, and it's not just going to be you use it twice in a game. You need to think, how can I use it for this quest, that quest, this location, this character, and it just kind of makes it, yeah, makes much harder, like a kind of combinatorial explosion where all these things, they multiply and variations are added. So yeah, I would say that's part of the danger, where on one hand it's positive, but it's just a trailer and some short description. And based on this, everybody may have completely different idea of what the game is like. So although it's positive, it's not necessarily feedback that would be when they would actually play it and experience the game for themselves, rather than just getting ideas from short video.
So how is that replay value though? Like so let's say I get through your game. Are you gonna have like ending branches as
Yeah,
like
yeah,
if
yeah.
you go a certain path,
100%.
like then I'll become
Yeah,
this if I go this,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So that way
yeah,
we
yeah,
can go back around and go a
yeah.
different direction.
Yeah, 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 that's the whole idea, obviously, with role playing. That's why I said, like, okay, you can at least, that's what I'm saying. At least there are kind of three main branches where, you're neutral, you're kind of with the law enforcement, you're kind of joining this sort of government, the state, and you're trying to solve their problems, or you try to kind of overthrow them or whatever, create something that would kind of help to, well, somehow change the situation. So
Hmm.
at least these ones, and then obviously there will be different, things depending on how you've handled specific situations, with characters, locations, and so that at the end you kind of see this kind of end slides based on what you've done. So there's this kind of
Hmm.
global overarching ending, and then kind of smaller ones depending on what you've done. And again, that's exactly how it was done in the original Fallout game.
Yeah. Now, so like this game, let's fantasize.
Yeah.
Let's fantasize for a minute. It takes off. Like all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is potentially a replacement for my current work because like at that point, do you continue to build on this or do you is there other ideas or projects that you're like you've been
Mm.
kind of like conceptualizing you're like maybe I can move on and start to work on another project that I've really wanted to make like what would be your transition if there even would be or would you just be like happy with the success and let it ride and continue
Yeah, I
working
mean, obviously,
or go
I'd
on a
probably
long
like.
holiday.
Well, I mean, everybody needs a long holiday. Yeah, I would say, no, I mean, first of all, I always kind of like to create things. That's why I said, like, when I was undergrad, I created this version of the game. And then, I was doing some, like demo scene where you create this kind of, coded animations. And then,
Yeah.
was just, I do doing some short films, videos. So I always like to create something. So yeah, I mean, but I think I kind of full circle, where I think the games is kind of the best medium right now in
Yeah.
terms of what's available, because you can
Hmm.
sort of combine all these other things that you can have, like, in books, films, animations, and I think obviously the strong part of games is really the interactive bit. You're not watching, you're not
Right. Right.
listening about, oh, he's done this, he's done that, and you're just, oh yeah, okay, what is he going to do next? It's like you're the one, you're doing it, and that's why I love the RPG aspect of it, the role playing, is because you are the one who making choices. That's the unique
Right.
aspect of it, and then you can actually kind of experience it kind of firsthand, um, rather than just somebody kind of describing or showing it in a way to evoke certain emotions. You kind of going through this, and you get these emotions yourself. So I really like this medium. I mean, because I think in a way at some point I kind of was lost interest in games, because I think it was, a lot of stuff was just, these big triple I games like
Yeah.
shooters and whatever, racing games, or some kind of strange sort of role-playing games, which are more just like a linear story, and it's all just about fancy graphics and things like that. But I think, yeah, now I kind of see again that there's a lot of potential, because there's a lot of also tools, and indie teams have proven that you can create things that are really well lasting and meaningful, and you don't need to have a huge team. So I would probably still be interested in this setting. I think that there's kind of quite a lot of things that could be told in it, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, like I love when I was doing some courses that like on game narrative and script writing. They kind of, okay, you have to play these games as part of the course,
Oh
and
wow, that's
and
interesting.
and I
Well, it makes
play them like,
sense. Of course,
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, and they're like, you actually have to not watch it on YouTube. You actually go and play that. And for instance, like some of them, like walking simulators, like the one that really kind of struck me was What Remains of Edith Finch, which is just a walking simulator in a house where the family used to live, and you just kind of come to visit the house, and kind of it's abandoned, and you just go through the rooms, and there are mini games,
Mm,
and it's all just, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you haven't played it, I really recommend. It's just like about 2.5 hours, 3 hours to complete it.
mm,
But it's yeah, I mean, the emotions it evokes, it's like there are some scenes that just like, and the thing is, again, you have to do it. Like, you already know what has to happen. You kind of have to do it, but you have to do it. I almost quit
oh
it at
yeah.
some point because some of the kind of emotions are, yeah, very well. I mean, it's just cathartic in the end, and it's got a great message, and but if you look at it, it's just a walking simulator,
What was
and
it
how
called one more time?
what remains of Edith Finch.
Walking.
No, just what remains. I mean, the
Oh,
genre is
water
walking
remains. I'm
simulator.
sorry.
Yeah, what remains of Edith Finch. Edith Finch. I can send you afterwards. Like, you really got it right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Send it to me. I think I'm spelling it wrong, but yeah, send it to me because I'm kind of curious. I want to see this thing you have to
Yeah, I
do.
mean,
Uh,
you know what? I'll just send you in Discord now. I've got it here.
okay, cool.
It's
Um,
yeah, it's also beautiful and all that. But I'm saying it's not like a lot of films would be able to create similar emotions and experiences. And
yeah.
actually, like one of them, for instance, the guy is depressed. He works in a kind of factory, and it kind of shows how he's escaping this reality, how he just
Oh,
goes
I
and
have seen this before.
yeah,
I have
yeah. I
seen
mean,
this.
it is beautiful, but I'll say the experience itself is really amazing. That's what I'm saying. Like, after playing some of them, like, wow, okay, so you know, it would be great, like, if even this kind of where you just kind of think, oh, it's just a walking simulator, but if I could create something like this at some point in my life, yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. No,
And you can
absolutely.
see it's got like 40,000 reviews on Steam and
Holy
95
smokes! Yeah,
rating.
it's done quite well. Well,
Oh
they
yeah,
make you
I mean,
play the thing in your class.
yeah, 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 exactly. Otherwise, honestly, I would never like walking simulator, and it's kind
Yeah,
of, I mean, and the graphics look sort of a bit strange, and it's kind of like stylized, a bit cartoonish. So not the game I would ever touch. If like
it's
somebody kind of almost didn't
yeah, it's
force me
really
into it.
unassuming. You're just like it's like what am I looking? It's very much like what am I looking at?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And that's
but
exactly
it's
kind of because the game is
interesting.
you can't just say one thing because it consists of a lot of mini games, but altogether it creates a very, very interesting experience.
That's cool. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Mm.
Um, so you're in London now, right?
Yeah, I kind of live nearby, not exactly in
Eh,
London, but yeah, I'm like half an hour away from London on a train.
Okay, got it. So when and why did we move to the UK?
Oh yeah, it's a long story. So basically, I was well, I studied in Russia, and then there was an opportunity for a scholarship. Actually, right. Okay, I'll rewind a bit. So I was studying I was studying well, radio physics, engineering,
Oh wow.
and telecommunications and things like that. But I always had this because interest, in game development and graphics. So I was doing this always in my spare time, and that's how I developed this game. And then I was doing demo scene, and then actually, I joined a game development company as I was studying. I was doing my
Mm,
master's, and so the company was Saber Interactive. Back then,
okay.
it was a smaller
That
one.
sounds familiar.
The Space Marine recently, and like
Yeah.
the World War Z, all that.
Oh
So
my
they're
God, yeah. Yeah,
they're
yeah,
quite
yeah.
huge now. Back then, it was much much smaller.
Oh, they're making the new Turok.
Yeah, I think they
Turok
that was
Origin.
they I think they now quite interested in some kind of older IPs because now they got enough, well, credibility in the industry that I think,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody kind of trusts them, and I'm sure they'll have a lot of. And there was this massive deal they had with Embracer, when they were buying companies and merging during COVID,
Oh yeah.
during the crazy time when everybody had whatever loads of money to throw at things. I think now they kind of, well, not they're a separate entity again. So anyway, yeah, I was working there, and then but I I always thought, oh, I want to work, so I want to try working outside Russia anyway. I'll
Yeah.
just need to get more experience. And then there was this opportunity that came up, kind of almost like really randomly. There was a scholarship in the UK for a PhD position about, yeah, basically some computer graphics and 3D modeling. And I thought, well, I thought I'll just give it a go because I thought
Yeah.
if just for the experience of going through, application process,
Yeah, of
interviews,
course.
because that would be useful. So I've gone through all of that, and somehow I ended up, it was just like me and another guy, and yeah, somehow I got it. And I was like, then really, do I really want to do that? Because I've gone all the
Like,
way.
I was just trying to learn, and they're like, "Well, you're
Yeah.
hired, so come on,
Yeah.
let's
So,
go."
and then, yeah. So basically, then I thought, okay, you know what? After all, if I don't like it, it's easy to drop out. Everybody does it all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So then, yeah. So right after I finished the masters, I went for this program in the UK. So I've done it, and after that, yeah, basically, I stayed in the UK. I didn't really want to go. I really like it here. And
Mhm.
then I was working in a company that was doing kind of visual effects for film for a bit.
Mm.
But then the company went bust, and I was still on a visa. It was quite a tricky situation. And then I joined a startup that had nothing to do with graphics or games. That's where I still work. But yeah, that's how I ended up where I am really.
Mm.
And I I,
Yeah,
ha- I have like I obviously that's what I'm saying. A lot of the style, I would say, a lot of the kind of things are inspired by kind of obviously what's happening in Soviet Union, Russia, and
yeah.
obviously I grew up there, and I mean I kind of would say absorbed a lot of stuff that was happening in the 90s when also, yeah, it was very sort of turbulent times, and I think these are kind of experiences and some of the sort of memories also I'd like to reflect in the game, in the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, a lot of those, I mean, obviously, it's great inspiration from a lot of those Eastern European countries that have basically just been fighting with each other for, I don't know, you probably know, forever. It feels like forever they've been fighting with each other, but especially
Yeah.
since the collapse of the Soviet Union because,
Yeah. Well, I
they've
think
lost.
actually, yeah. So basically, when there was obviously this big civil war in Yugoslavia, I think others there were some of the countries, so in the Asian part they had this, like Armenia, Georgia, there were a few kind of smaller local conflicts, but I think otherwise in general after Yugoslavia, I think it was more or less stable.
Mm,
It just obviously there were the tensions building up, between Russia and Ukraine, but it's more like political and some of the heritage, because I think even for Europe, it took a long time to stop fighting the wars. It's like, okay, let's after the Second World War, after all the atrocities and horrors, let's just try to unite. Let's just try to cooperate. Let's try to make it so that it doesn't make sense for us to go to war because
right,
we're
right.
also tied together. We're also economically
Yeah,
interlinked, connected, that it just would make zero sense. Although, it's like never saying never, because now there are some tensions in the European Union, the whole UK, leaving European Union. I think, interestingly, yeah, there may be some interesting times ahead when everybody thought, oh, we figured everything, like not a lot of people making fun of, Fukuyama, who wrote this wrote this philosophical article, The End of History, when Soviet Union collapsed, because he's like, okay, that's it. We don't have these two ideologies fighting each other. It's going to be democracy. It's just going to be great future
which is
ahead of us.
hilarious because it's
Yeah.
like you're like, nope,
Yeah, exactly.
we're
And
still
that's
fighting
and
each
because
other.
that's what I'm saying. Because for years, for like over a decade, everybody was referring to this article like, yeah, yeah, this is we live in new times, and kind of. But apparently, it was just temporary thing because now obviously all the tensions are building up again, you see that it's not gone anywhere. It was just like a temporary thing rather than a new trend. So obviously,
Hmm.
there's still a lot of things to figure out, and I think yeah, the idea is to maybe yeah try to reflect on some of this as well.
I think we're very much like as a society, as like a people of this planet, led into a false sense of security, in thinking that, oh yeah, great, yeah, everything's gonna be great. There's not gonna be any wars, but it's like these tensions. I mean, anytime I just, in my opinion, people are going to want to fight each other, and for one weird reason or another, and everyone has their own individual's motivations, and they have their motivations for their people and other things, and it's I don't war is a tale that will never end. We'll always be fighting each other. There will never be a peaceful world, in my opinion. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean,
You have,
I think it's
you can have a disagreement with somebody and they're like, that's it, we're going to war.
yeah. Well, I think I would say things are getting better because obviously I think like overall they say the level of violence, kind of the trends is all kind of going down across the world in general. I mean, you
Mhm.
have this kind of you know outliers spikes, but again, it could be sort of something just before the storm, or maybe
Yeah.
we just I think we're getting better, but I think just because of how we, evolved and all the mechanisms that are built in us, because that's kind of we evolved, we are where we are because our predecessors did what they did. So obviously they were evolutionary. They had to be aggressive. They had to kill others. They had to, destroy another tribe. It was putting their tribe in danger, and all this it's like yeah, this kind of old software that's still in us, and it's very hard to patch it to kind of get rid of
Yeah.
it.
I
So I
think
think
that's true. I
I'm
think
still I'm
that's
still I'm still kind of positive. I hope will, but it's definitely gonna take a much longer time than I think
right.
the optimists were hoping.
Yeah, I very much think that's true for like the individual. I think very much as on an individual person, like you sit down with somebody or you are individually, we're much less violent individually. But I
Yeah,
think it's once we all, for some reason, we all get together in a group and decide that this is going to be our world and life. And then all of a
yeah.
sudden,
I think it's even also why people say, kind of that with racism, it's a similar thing where if you're not exposed to some other culture where you just have some concepts and notions that are kind of
mm,
enforced on you, and you have these ideas, but then if you may have a chance to kind of actually encounter a real person, like have a human connection,
oh, yeah.
from another race, and you're like, oh, okay, I thought, you're all like this, or maybe you're an exception, okay, but and that's how a lot of people change their opinion,
Yeah. There's
about
a
certain
really
facts
good
or
example of that. Like, there was this obviously we have like the KKK in United States and stuff like that.
yeah,
But early in the 80s, 90s, I don't remember exactly, but there was this one he was a blues singer, blues musician or something like that, and he was this black guy that sang the blues and all that stuff, but he got known for going to like KKK rallies and
mm,
trying to just have conversations with them. Obviously, he's going in there talking to people that fundamentally hate who he is. And he gained some notoriety because he ended up converting a lot of people that were basically, very diehard racist into basically going like burning their robes and stuff like that. But exactly what you're saying is like when you actually sit down with somebody that you may have this weird preconception of because of whatever your environment is. Your environment tells you that's a bad person, don't ever talk to that person or whatever they're saying. If you actually can sit down with somebody, I guarantee you there's more in common. You have more in common with people than you
yeah, yeah,
realize once you actually sit down and talk to somebody one on one. So,
100%.
but anyway,
I think,
yeah,
but the
that
trouble, yeah, sometimes some of this, I think some people are more susceptible. They're more, so somebody told them something or whatever, the state enforced some interpretation on them. Some people are maybe a bit more, they may doubt more. They may be a bit more, well, what's the best word? It's like just not really, taking it all for granted. While for I think for others, yeah, it's just they need simple answers, and if they already got them, it's
yeah.
very hard to really change it. And I think yeah, that's part of the thing. I think yeah, that's part of the situation these days where there's so much polarization because already people got these ideas, and it's hard to really bring them to the other side or show them another side, because it's always
Yeah.
just they don't want to make an effort to try, because they think it's the other ones are the evil ones, and then they're on the, again, talking about gray morality and all that, where sometimes just
Right.
trying to both sides to get perspective on another, rather than just putting some labels and just not treating them as like other human beings.
I think it's a good point, as far as they just want simple answers. Like what you just said there. I think people just want simple answers sometimes. Because I feel like a lot of the time you get very caught up. Obviously, we're going down a fun rabbit hole. We're going down a different direction, but it's totally fine. I think that's one of the things I said. I'll talk about anything, but people, um, life can be very overwhelming when you start to juggle all the different things that you got going in life. You got a family, you got a job, you got a very demanding job, you got all these different things that you're trying to do in life. And when you start to add other elements that may, like, political or medical or all these different things that you now have to spend time to research, learn, or educate yourself, you get fatigued, and you know what, I just tell me what to think at some point. Some people, that's how some people feel. I'm not saying everyone feels that way, but some people feel that they just like, I just need to be told what to think at this point because I just too much. I
No,
got
I
all
mean,
these different
I
things
mean,
going on,
you,
and
you need you kind of still need to focus on something. Like, you can't learn everything in the world anyway. There's so
right,
many subject areas. There's so many conflicts in the world that you can learn. Some people spend their entire life just trying to get all the aspects. So I think in a way, yeah, you kind of need something that's kind of digested in a way that's already kind of gives you some answers. The question is like, do you want to dig deeper? Do you want to try and, okay, this side, is there another side? Can I quickly maybe digest it, or maybe I'll try to kind of get something in between, rather than be on one kind of poles of this, or that kind of how we ended up all polarized, and just not even listening to each other, and just
yeah,
refusing to talk
yeah.
to each
I
other.
think not listening to each other is really a big thing, of big part of it too. Is just like, I have my own personal opinions, but I'm like so willing to listen to so many different things and so many different people about their own aspects. It says everyone comes from, everyone's life is their own, is a journey in their way. Like how they were brought up and all the things that they experienced in their life can be completely different than mine, and why I see the world in a certain way, you know? And it's not, and the world is so very uncookie cutter. It's not like everyone should do this and here's the stamp and this is the way you should go about it. These are the things you should think. Well, wait a second, that person didn't quite grow up that way, and their experiences was very different, And so, um, yeah, man. Uh, I don't know where to go from that, but that was fun.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, so this is I mean, and so I don't know if you want to talk about it, but it's just like this whole thing with like the, like, Russia and Ukraine, man. It's like, it's really unfortunate. I don't know too much about it. I'm not gonna act like some sort of expert here by any means. But like for you, that, like you were just kind of alluding to, like how that kind of like, obviously you're Russian, so it's like this is a very tumultuous situation as far as what's going on over there. I don't know if you
yeah,
want to
because I
even
think the
express any
problem
sort
is,
of opinion on
because
that.
yeah, you grow up, and you sort of, when I was growing up, obviously now when you look back, some of the tensions were building up, but they were in kind of some kind of niche communities. They were kind of
Mm,
nationalists on both sides, and there was this thing when the whole thing with some regions, where the border was, there was like a lot of people who can see, who are kind of Russians, they speak Russian
mm,
language,
yeah,
but now they're part of another country. And they kind of, there are countries in, like here in the UK, there's Scottish people, there's Welsh people. I mean, there are a lot of Scots who hate English. There's a lot of Welsh who hate English. On
right,
the other hand, somehow they live together, and apart from some of the communities, some radicals, it's all right. But and when I was growing up, it never would occur to me that this may happen ever, because you could
right.
just go there, like, and also because the families are interlinked, like everybody's got someone, like cousin, whatever, somebody in your family would be like in Russia, would have some ties to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So it just
I'm
seems
sorry.
so
I
incredible
apologize.
that,
Give me 1 second.
yeah,
My
no
dog's gonna
worries.
break the door down. Give me
No
just one
worries.
second. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt you. If I didn't
no
let her
worries.
in, she would have broken the door down.
So
Sorry.
yeah,
So
well, it's just
as you were saying,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. It's just saying that yeah, the thing that because I was already far away, I've not been to Russia for like over a decade.
Mm,
I've got my parents there, but I hardly have any kind of like links in terms of like physical links. Like I've not been there. Obviously, I'm Russian. It's my native language. It's kind of part of my DNA.
yeah.
But I kind of would say lost a lot of sort of connections. I would say and links. Like I wasn't really go paying a lot of attention. Like obviously the whole thing with it's kind of becoming more of a dystopian state, and before the war, where you have the same president years and years, and
Mm,
you kind of, so I kind of lost interest. But obviously, when this happened, it just kind of made me reevaluate a lot of things that like also, 'cause, in 2014, it's kind of where people say it started, where there was this
mm,
whole. So I mean, yeah, it's just I'm for myself. I also kind of learned a lot during this period because I kind of never had second thoughts. It's like, they're a neighboring country. You don't need a visa to go there. People were easily going back and forth.
yeah.
So it's like kind of like U.S. and Canada,
Yeah.
It's
For
very
sure.
similar, very similar, like share a lot of history. Yeah, they were at wars, kind of in the past, but it's kind of seems like it was all done and dusted. Like forget it. Like let's move on. And
Yeah.
apparently, yeah, there were a lot of tensions building up internally, and yeah, it's. I mean, I'm yeah. Also, was I think I was also quite surprised how a lot of people. I mean, I think it's this sort of post-imperial resentment, where
Hmm.
a lot of people from the older generation, they're sort of like, oh, it's we were part of something greater, we were respected in the world, and now in the 90s and like later it was just like nobody took us seriously, we were all struggling, nobody cared, we were thrown under the bus, and now it's our sort of we're showing everybody we're strong, and I was like really surprising, like I never
Yeah.
really realized, and that's what I'm saying, it's part of the thing that I also want to reflect in the game, where it's you would if you I would say if you use it, if you take advantage of this, because again, this would not happen if there wasn't kind of the soil was prepared for it. Just throw some seeds and it starts growing, and there was
Yeah.
apparently a lot of it, which again for me was kind of under the radar. But you see how many people actually support what's happening, and they kind of and they go there, and again, I'm not, obviously there's a lot of labels and people, but they have their own lives, they have their own ideological framework somewhere in their head that they do this for people sacrifice their life on both sides, and it's yeah, it's really it's just really crazy that it just kind of seemed
Yeah.
like, because for me it was always kind of beneath the surface, like I never realized that how it could go escalate so quickly.
Yeah.
So
And
that
it's
that
well,
that's the thing, was like really kind of depressing as well, because you kind of think, oh, it's just the leader who made the decision, and yes, he did, but you see that a surprising large number of people seem to support it.
yeah, it is a surprising and it's just like for me, it's like unfortunate because when I think of Russia, I think of like I mean, Russia's had some amazingly brilliant scientists come out of Russia and with their cosmonaut program.
Yeah, yeah,
And and not only that, they're engineers, and then also like the ballet and their
yeah.
composers,
There are a lot of writers. Yeah,
Tchaikovsky,
yeah,
one of the greatest of all time. I mean, and so it's like to see this uh, situation get so ugly and have such a tarnish in a way. It's
yeah. But I mean,
unfortunate.
on the other hand, some people from the other side, they would tell you, oh, but you know, they've sent someone to space because it was Cold War, because they had to build some rockets to be able to deliver nukes to the U.S.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I think it was always really complicated, and even now there's revolution going on. Like there are some writers or poets, that it's like they're part of the school program, but now some
Mm,
people are visiting and like, oh look, but they were like so much pro-empire, they were so kind of chauvinistic, they were looking at other nations as just like, that because they had some, or like, oh, they were anti-Semitic, Even with some of them who kind of you would take for granted, they're sort of like the pillars of whatever Russian history and
Hmm.
culture, that some people would say yes, but you also have to understand. And again, it doesn't make them monsters or something, but back in their days, back in their context, it was kind of mainstream. It was accepted, and some of it, yeah, it's kind of how it spreads through history as well. So some of these roots are also back there as well.
Yeah. I got a kind of a weird question, and you can answer it. Or you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Like, just as someone who, just an observer, or just as someone who's just generally curious, what is it like? If you were to consider like being Russian, like what does it mean to be Russian? Like what is it? I don't know. That's such a profound,
Yeah.
weird question. But like, what would you consider that to be? To be like, I'm Russian. This is like who I am. This is like my identity. This is why I, you know,
Mm.
maybe or maybe you just maybe you don't. I'm not sure. I'm just kind of curious. Like,
Yeah,
if
I
you were to
mean,
consider the Russian people,
yeah.
like, what is it? I'm not sure. I'm just kind
I
of
think the
curious.
trouble
Like,
is,
if
I
you were
mean,
to,
I think that was part of the challenge because, I mean, in terms of like Russian ideology and for the state, is because in a way, Russia, it's been over centuries, it's been growing and kind of consuming the regions that were kind of neighbors. There were
Mhm.
different local tribes or some kind of other nations. So it's not like i- it's almost like it's not a racial thing. It's like, oh, Russian means, it's because in
Right,
Russia,
right.
like, there's so many different uh, people, like in the Far East, there are people who look like Chinese or Japanese. In the
Of
Caucasian
course.
regions, there are people who look like, they're more kind of Arabic looking.
Hmm.
In the Western part, they're kind of like Scandinavian, looking
Hmm.
people, like, European, Eastern European. So it's definitely kind of not just whatever your what your DNA constitutes. Obviously, I mean, for me, a big thing, it's the language, because this is the
Hmm.
common thing. This is the common ground. Because obviously, a lot of this other, obviously they have their own languages, but it's kind of Russian. And it's also from Soviet days they were enforced to learn it. And even in the
Hmm.
Eastern Bloc, like, you meet a lot of people like from older generation, like from Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, who are part of the Eastern Bloc. A lot of them speak Russian more or less, and it
Hmm.
wasn't their choice. It was kind of enforced on them as like, okay, you have to learn this. So I would say it's a big thing, and it's a kind of, and a lot of people, yeah, that's just like a lot of people in Ukraine used to speak Russian. I mean, now probably
Yeah.
a smaller number. And there were people who like thinking, oh, we should be with Russia rather than with the West. I think
Mm.
again, smaller numbers now because where what happened to their cities, to their
Right.
to their lives after that. I think a lot of people are giving up, and they kind of I don't want to be considered Russian anymore. I don't want to be. So I think language, and I mean, obviously, I would say, yeah, the history, the culture, where, yeah, they try to think like you have to. I can't say I was maybe like genuine, strongly Russian from this perspective, because I think I was a bit critical of like, okay, you're enforcing this, and there are other great nations as well. I'm not. I mean, for the whole concept of, again, maybe it's I'm not the best sampling because I'm the one who kind of left Russia, who doesn't live there, who doesn't have strong ties with
Yeah.
Russia. But I mean,
Yeah.
still, as I say, I will always be Russian. I mean, it's part of.
Of
I mean,
course.
and I was also like talking to someone because somebody was like actually recently on Reddit discussing also Disco Elysium, and and somebody was like what were the references, and somebody said in the responses, like, oh, growing up, in Estonia in the 90s, but because Estonia used to be part of Soviet Union, and it's a lot of this sort of things would be familiar because when it collapsed, the links destroyed, poverty, there's kind of a lot of depression, kind of gray. Um, so I would say also like in a lot of Russian history and like writing, there's a lot of kind of darkness, melancholy. So for me, it's
Mm.
also part. Maybe some people say it's extremes because if I don't know, Russian people in general, like they are not smiling much, then they're not. But on the other hand, if they if you get to know them or if they get drunk, they will have the craziest whatever
If they
parties and
get some
things.
good vodka.
Yeah, and this thing, like I'm also saying, like I always keep saying, because it's one of the first things that comes up. Somebody says like, "Oh, you're Russian," like, "Oh, vodka," and like, I don't drink any alcohol. I never. So for me, it's like almost like I'm fake Russian. I can't answer this question. But I'm saying I think also it's a bit of a shift in newer generation. So I mean,
Yeah.
the kind of alcohol induced whatever adventures is not exactly. sort of the main thing. But it's part of it. Like obviously, alcohol is, I think, one of the things that's quite
I
important.
feel I feel like, and I could be completely off base, but I feel like um in history, I feel like Russians, especially since even during like the was it the Bolsheviks? I think you guys,
Hmm.
what was it? I mean, you guys have gone through some shit, is what I'm saying. And so drinking, I mean, when you're going through some shit, a good way to get through it is to get drunk. And
Yeah, but
so,
it's also it's also part of the
and it's
problem where
cold. Holy shit. So
yeah,
warm
well, I
yourself
mean.
up. Drink some vodka, warm up. Let's go.
Yeah, actually, I think because a lot of it is kind of sort of conservative values, and with conservative values, you have this masculine gender roles where, if you're a man,
Mm,
you have to be tough, you should not show your
mm.
weakness, no emotions, which is kind of what they well, still kind of insist on in a way, yeah, because they're all for traditional values,
Mm.
anything. And obviously the idea is it's one of the coping mechanisms because obviously like if you tell like dude thinks he's a real man and tell like, oh, maybe you need to talk to, maybe you need to have like some therapy session because you probably
Okay.
have so many traumas from your and they would like, well, I'm not pussy, and they would and obviously, but they still need a coping mechanism. So a lot of the time,
Right.
yeah, the coping mechanism you get drunk because that kind of helps you, whatever, ease the
Forget
pain,
about it.
forget about it,
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's one of the probably one of the reasons because historically that's how it was like, and that's also why historically and maybe it's changed a bit now, but I mean it's not just in Russia, but in Russia it was much more pronounced that life expectancy, of man is much lower than
Mm.
for women, and it's part of it because a lot of it is because of alcohol, or heart disease, which is again a lot of to do with stress management, and just taking care, even just like taking care of your health. It's like, oh, I'm a real man, like I don't need to see a doctor, whatever stupid pills,
Yeah.
my granddad never took any of stupid pills,
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
go
again, I
fight a
think it's
bear.
changing, but again, it's like, yeah, it's a bit of a, um, uh, yeah, I think it's because they're trying to present themselves now as well. We are the conservative kind of what we are kind of what for what West used to be and lost its
Mm.
mojo, and we're after this, and we're gonna be the proper way how it was meant to be, and we'll stay true to these values.
Interesting. It's crazy, man. I mean, it's thanks for indulging me. I was just generally I'm just generally kind of a curious person anyway. And
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like
that's a good conversation.
I'm just generally kind of curious about things. And I think people they have everyone comes from different areas and their perspectives on how things go and how things are is just
Mhm.
everyone in a way, it's very
Yeah, it's
open.
like you
Everything
remember
is
I saw the
interesting.
show. Yeah, I saw the show you had with this. I think it's the Paradigm Island game, like two Finnish
Oh
guys
yeah.
working on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it's another one where you could talk about Russia and speculate all day, and then there's Finland that's just across the border, similar
Right. Oh
conditions,
yeah.
some similar problems, but they took completely different way, and path, and they they're in a quite different place than Russia. And so I mean it's talking about where sometimes it's similar conditions, similar environment, but sometimes you just take a few different sort of turning points in history, and
Mm.
you could end up in a completely different place.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say it's. I mean, I don't think there are any simple answers. And again, I would say I'm not necessarily the best person because I kind of maybe I would be seen in Russia as a traitor because I don't live in Russia. I don't support current government
Yeah.
and what they're doing. So I think, yeah, that you may have very different opinions. But interestingly, there's actually a lot of indie developers from Russia, and I know that a lot of them, uh,
I
like,
think I'm meeting with a couple, well, not
uh,
very, super prominent, but it's the indie Russian developers. I think I'm meeting with a couple others as well. So, I mean, yeah,
yeah, I
sorry,
think
I
it's
didn't mean to cut you off
somehow,
there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, no, but I'm saying I mean, a lot. I know that a lot of them left the country, and well,
Mm,
and I kind of again thought I was in kind of really a luxurious position that at least I'm not there for a long time, and I personally didn't see anything good coming because of how the political situation was developing, like whatever, 15 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's just in a way you could see it happen, but on the other hand, I think there were multiple points in the recent modern history where Russia could be in a completely different way. It was just like a
Yeah.
few decisions, a few people making specific choices, and that's where it ended up. And
What a
it's
time.
and if you look over a long period, like you were talking about Bolsheviks, revolutions and the rest, there could be things. Sometimes it's just random. It's like even Bolsheviks,
Oh.
Lenin, just like
Mm-hmm.
uh, because there were kind of two revolutions. So the first one, when they overthrew the monarch, and then they overthrew the kind of temporary government. And
Mm-hmm.
just about like half a year before the revolution, when they overthrew the emperor, kind of the monarch, he was he was like in Switzerland, and he was writing in his letters like, probably we're not going to see a revolution in our times. We're probably never going to see Russia again.
Oh wow.
And then and then like 6 months later, bang, he's back. The country is completely changing, and it's changing the whole world. The whole, like, obviously it affected everyone.
Crazy.
You couldn't
Oh,
hide
the
from it.
full, the entire trajectory of the country
Yeah.
in a
Yeah, but
direction.
that's what I'm
That's for
saying.
sure.
Sometimes it's like you have small changes, small tweaks, and they lead to some massive consequence. Talking about games and role playing games
Yeah.
and gray
It's
morality,
great.
because again, they're not necessarily doing. I'm sure all the people, because all the people who then were killed, who were doing the revolution and then they were killed, they all thought they are doing something good. They're
Oh yeah.
changing the country for the better. And
Mm-hmm.
then a lot of them obviously, changed their mind. A lot of them couldn't even, didn't have enough time to change their mind because they died, being killed by their own companions.
Mm. Fuck it. Let's go to Mars.
Well, I heard somebody wants to, explode some thermonuclear, so probably even need somewhere further.
Oh man, it's gosh, but that's a story of told as old as time. I mean, you people get displaced and they find a new place to live. They create a new society, a new world, new anything. I mean, America. That's exactly how we were
Yeah, and
found.
then they
It's
bring their own luggage, with them
yeah,
anyway.
and then they
No
bring
matter,
their
you
own
cannot
luggage.
run away from yourself. Your nature, what you evolved to be, is just always
Yeah.
with you.
Oh man, that's funny. Oh man, but yeah, man, I don't know what it is with humans. We keep screwing everything up, don't we?
Yeah.
We're
I
pretty
mean,
good
again,
at it.
there was the thing where there were so many species in the early days that,
Uh,
when they find some of the skeletons, and they say, oh, this is, they used to have this, huge whatever mice, or some kind of guinea pigs
yeah,
that were like 1 ton, what would be whatever 2 by 2 meters. And
yeah,
they say, and the last ones they find is during the time when the human species got to this area, because they would be independently evolving there,
yeah,
and then they were all some crazy interesting species, and then as humans evolve and they start spreading around, all of a sudden a lot of the species just go extinct. They extinguish. They just don't exist. So we've been doing this like since the early days, like destroying things around.
we've
But
been doing
at
this a
least
while. We've
I'm
been at
still,
it. We've
yeah,
been pretty good at killing things for a while.
yeah, and obviously now good at killing each other as well. So
Yeah,
better than ever. But I mean, I still kind of want to be more on the optimistic side. That I hope we learn. It's
yeah,
it's a very slow process. It's kind of a bit of like 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. But I still
yeah,
think it's 1 step backward, not like 3 steps backward. So I think we're
yeah.
kind of moving somewhere. It's a very painful process. I think very slow as well.
Yes, yeah, yeah. A lot of, and it's interesting. I'm sorry. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm 40, 41. Sorry, because I don't
41.
talk about
Okay.
41.
So I'm 38, and so like,
Okay.
so you're an older, like generationally millennial, and so it's interesting looking at like millennials, well, and especially in the States, but like as a millennial in America, like we've never really had like the best of times, like growing up, like
Mhm.
compared to like the 90s and the what we called the boomers or our parents,
Oh yeah.
where they kind of lived through like some of the greatest times in our country. And we've had this perpetual just one crisis after another as we as we continue to get older and older and older, and we've kind of gotten this like it's like kind of an ongoing joke or meme in a way from American millennials where it's just like, oh, nuclear war, and we're like, okay, what else is new? What else is gonna happen? I'm like, I'm gonna go
Mhm.
collect Pokemon cards, I guess. Like it's just like because we're so detached, or we're so like I guess exhausted because everything's been such a crisis after crisis after every 5 years. It feels like something's happening. It's like the
Yeah.
world's on fire again. Financial crisis, the freaking,
Yeah,
pandemic, the this, the
COVID. Yeah,
that, the
yeah.
this, the now war, now that. It's
Mhm.
just one thing after another with for our generation that we're so just mentally fatigued about the whole thing. And I wonder if like you guys over in like well, you've been in the UK for the last decade, but it's just like if you kind of have had similar life where it's just like fatigued with the news cycle in a way, where it's just like, yeah, man, there's people screwing this whole world up. There's not a lot I can do about it. I guess I'll
Yeah.
make a video game.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and that's what I'm saying. That's how it started, like, whatever, more than 20 years ago, where, you just kind of, all these things around you, and you just, it's like everybody's got their own unique, neural network. So, we'll get similar inputs, and we then have different sort of results or outcomes after that. Um, so that's what I'm saying. That's what it was for me, because some people, they saw this and they're like, well, I don't know, I should go in government and try and change something. Somebody would be, you know what, I mean, we should just whatever change this whole thing. We should, and there were some people, who were quite radicalized. And for me, I think, yeah, I was more just like, I just want to create something, and I don't feel like I am in a position to make choices for others. I'm not like, for instance, like if you're gonna be, I don't know, politician or something, like you think you know the right thing. I never thought I knew the right thing. I was always kind of doubting things, and that's why I also like the kind of this gray morality and the RPGs, because
Yeah.
yes, you make these choices, you're not sure they're right, but you
Hmm.
kind of, it's a bit of an idea to kind of play. It's a bit of a modeling where if you do this, what would happen if you do that? Kind of think about the consequences. And I think it also helps in the world as well, because sometimes maybe people make some short-sighted decisions, and
Mm.
or they think they have all the right answers, but they don't. And but it's also a bit of a problem with evolution. If you're, maybe if you're doubting, if you're questioning, and it will be someone who doesn't, and who thinks has the right answers, or he can give the right answers to people and they vote for him, and then he starts making these changes, so that people who maybe would potentially make better decisions, or maybe a bit more balanced or more empathetic, they're just out because they think they're not good enough, while
Mm.
people who are worse than them, they end up, running them. So yeah, that's kind of, well, the sad thing. But yeah, maybe, but on the other hand, yeah, I'm not really a sort of idealistic person who thinks, oh, we can just go. Yes, you can change something, but I think there's limited things you can change in the world. And it's also like talking about the game, because I'm not gonna make it into where whatever you start from nothing, and by the end of the game, you or whatever that you overthrow the tyrant. It's like, no,
Mm.
I mean, there's always, there's this kind of powers of history, and there's individual. Yeah, there are some random events, but essentially, it's not just kind of one person who changes history. Normally, there's a kind of, again, it's like in Tolstoy's, War and Peace. That was one of the ideas, that you have this philosophy of history, that it's not Napoleon, for instance, or whatever, Hitler. It is like he was just representing this global movement, this global state, and there was
Hmm.
already kind of ground prepared. He's just kind of someone who can, it's like the ball at the top of the hill, and you,
Yeah.
is it going to one side or the other? So yes,
Hmm.
but somebody already brought this book and pushed it all the way here. So is it going to
Right.
go back, or is it go over the board?
Yeah.
Uh,
Because anybody can have an idea, and then if it's not good, or if people don't agree with it, then it'll get cast aside. But of course, if somebody is saying something loudly, and you got a lot of people that agree with it, then of course you'll get a bigger and bigger megaphone, and then all of a sudden you've now created a entire movement. No, you're
yeah,
absolutely right.
and I think especially what changed now, I think from whatever old generations, is that because there were, say, newspapers, yeah, they've been there for hundreds of years, so that's how people would consume things, yeah. and then okay, radio, okay, TV, but it was still okay. You could have whatever, like in the US now you have Fox News, and then you have whatever CNN,
Mhm.
and then, but now I think because with advent of whatever internet and social media, everything is really tied to you. It's really, it's not just centralized, so and it's even easier to end up. Obviously, people talk a lot about this echo chambers, bubbles where
Mhm.
uh, there were wars before. Maybe you just weren't exposed as much. There were conflicts. There were people
Mhm.
doing horrible things. You just kind of never really heard of it. You never got the level of detail that you can, because now anybody can just whatever shoot a video, and you see all the atrocities, and like you're there firsthand. And I think that also we need to kind of learn to kind of live and cope with this, because I
Mhm.
think again we didn't evolve to kind of be switched on in every conflict in the world, in every sort of kind of bad situation, and somebody was treated unfair, and I think because when you kind of, it's building up, you're like, I want this to be resolved, I want solutions, I want answers, I want them now, and it just kind of builds up, and you also, that's the problem. But maybe newer generations, like I keep comparing, it's like, whatever, you could buy cocaine in pharmacy, like 100 years ago,
Mhm.
like
It's
you can
true.
see these ads where doctors were
Heroin, you can do
recommending,
heroin, you can get, yeah,
yeah,
you can get any
or you
crazy
like you could,
drugs.
you had this, like whatever, even like less than 60, 70 years ago, you had these ads where they say, oh, my doctor recommends these cigarettes with menthol because they're good for my throat,
Yeah.
so. And it's like, I think we kind of live in a similar thing where, in whatever 50 years, somebody's like, look, they had all this social media, all this news and all these feeds like going right into their brain. And like
Yeah.
they had no idea what kind of effect
It's
it had on them,
overwhelming. It's
Yeah.
overwhelming, and you're right, that people can get stuck in their bubble, and then they can close off any sort of thing that might disagree with whatever their worldview might be, and they'll just close themselves off and just continue down that path. And yeah, in one of the episode, when did I bring it up? Um, oh, it was just the most recent episode that I posted when I was talking to the guy that made that Game Boy Color game. He We were talking about beliefs, and in the sense of like, when you make something your belief, that's one of the hardest things to shake off of somebody, because it becomes your identity. Your belief is your identity. I'm not necessarily talking about religion specifically. I'm talking about your whole belief structure. I
Yeah.
believe that
Yeah.
I'm good at something. I believe that I am this. I believe that I am that. I believe these types of things that people are telling me. You know what I mean? I believe, you know, it could be sinister too. I believe this sinister thing that somebody is telling me. So it's like, once you get that belief in there, that's the hardest thing to shake from somebody, because the beliefs become your identity. It's what runs your whole operation. And
Hmm.
so to shake that and hold that, I mean, it's one of those things that it's just like, I, I mean, I'm not a psychologist or anything, or it's way above my pay grade, but it's something that's very interesting to me, that people get so stuck in their belief system that it's
Hmm.
like, even when you can show un un proof that you can't argue with, you could show them proof, like, here it is, this is what it looks like, and they're like, nope, I still don't believe it, because it's a belief. It's a belief to
Hmm.
them,
Yeah,
because you're
because I
basically
think,
trying to
yeah,
say
yeah.
you need to change your entire personality and identity, because what you believe is not true, and
Yeah.
that is so hard.
Yeah, and I think some people, yeah, I think some people just say this is a defensive mechanism, because
Yeah.
it's like, because otherwise you could kind of think, I lived my entire life wrong, for instance,
Mhm.
and then if you kind of accept this could just break you, and so this kind of defensive mechanism where, I don't care what you tell me, I'm not changing this, because otherwise this is kind of the only pillar that I'm based on. So if
It's
you're
their only
strong,
foundation. You're
yeah,
basically
yeah,
trying to
exactly.
destroy
That's
their foundation,
yeah,
yeah.
and I mean, and maybe if somebody's strong enough, there's some people, they even like, okay, easier talk about like, religion, as a kind of, everybody understands this kind of belief system
Yeah.
where some people, yeah, they break out, and it's hard, and and it changes their whole life, and then they are out of their community, maybe their family doesn't talk to them anymore. If they
Mm.
have the strength to kind of live with this, yeah, but obviously it's not for everyone, and they need something. So I think it's like, makes total sense that they may get very aggressive if you tell them, and even they see like they've got no more arguments, it just gets emotional, you just whatever. they punch you in the face because there's nothing else they can oppose. But they need something they need to oppose. They can't
Yeah.
just let you break them in a way.
Yeah.
And
I
even, yeah, sometimes you look, yeah, you don't want to break people. Like, it's,
yeah,
if
and
you see it's, you're just being
and
gentle and
it's
like, okay, let's not talk about it.
yeah. But but it's also a sad situation because people get, they get destructive beliefs, destructive for themselves. It's very self-destructive beliefs. And it's like you want to guide them into something that's less destructive in their life and push and help them, but you're right, it's just, but if you start to rock that belief structure, and I think, one of the things we talked about was with cults. Like, he was in a cult, that last episode. And think about that. Like, people are sitting here, you know brainwashing you, and now we want to talk about devout belief system. It's like, clearly these are people that are just trying to manipulate you into doing what they want you to do. um, but yeah, man, it's a great. I'd love to just spend time, the little tiny bit of time that I don't have to actually dig into the belief structures. But that's definitely like one of those things that's, people, I don't know. I've lost my train of thought.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. It's a huge topic, and I think it's, again, it's a very fundamental part of our brain. Again, how we evolved, because there's obviously this notion that the whole thing with beliefs is what brought us where we are, because you need to kind of believe in your tribe, in your nation, in your
Right.
leader, because otherwise you cannot bring people together. You cannot bring them to create something bigger, because it's all
True.
just based on the belief, and that's kind of, again, our predecessors who did not believe, they didn't pass their genes, because they maybe went roam in the desert, and somebody else built a settlement together, and then they decided, I believe I'm going to work here, and in the past, there will be place whatever for my kids, and this leader will take care of our tribe and will be prosperous and blah blah. So obviously then people finding some kind of hacks into this and taking advantage of this. Yeah, it's, yeah, it it's, again, talking about the software in us, and it's very, very fundamental, somewhere very, very deep, and it's what helped us. But again, now it's environment change. We have to adapt, and we have to revisit all this, but it's very hard to get rid of it or change it in any way.
These shows are becoming more philosophical and less game development lately.
Well, I
which
mean,
is which is fun. I mean, but it's interesting. Like, I think one of the things when I was conceptualizing the show, which was obviously, it was the primary goal was to get light on projects that I found were interesting, to help other indie devs that possibly aren't getting the exposure that I believe that they probably should be getting, because they're making an interesting project, and I think people should be aware of it. That was kind of the initial conception of it. Well, the original reason was because I was looking for shows to get on to talk about my game and my journey and things like that. But there just wasn't anything out there. So I was like, well, shit, if there's nothing out there, then I guess I'll make it. And that's why I made this. And then started talking to more and more people. And, but in general, too, it just kind of started to evolve more outside of the boundaries of just the project, more just talking to people and, I don't know, getting to know other people out there in the world. I mean, it's just kind of fun for me, I guess. Thanks
Yeah,
for indulging
I
me.
hope it's interesting for the viewers as well.
Whatever. If it's not, who cares? No,
Well, if you want to, obviously, if you want to grow your channel, I guess.
yeah, and I mean, it's a balance too. I'm like, that's the thing. It's what I've been telling some other people too, is just like, you guys are kind of beta testers, because I'm not sure, is it, if I just focus straight on the game, will that be interesting? Or if I focus more on some of these outlier aspects that people can grab onto, then find, I'm trying to balance and figure out what are people going to grab onto. It's also still kind of early, so it's like it's hard to gauge what I'm doing is right, because you don't want to pivot too early, because it may be because the algorithm just hates me right now and it doesn't know what to do with my content yet, and it hasn't put it in front of the right people. So there's a little bit of that, and I mean, it's it's I'll have you back in a year and let you know how it went.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, I was just about to say that I think it's probably it would be interesting to talk to people, after, maybe after actually they release the project, or maybe, I don't know, cancel or whatnot, because I think
Mm.
okay, you were there, you had these ideas, you had this hypothesis about how it's gonna go, what's gonna work, whatnot, and then, yeah, how did it actually go? Like, what? what did you, what were the mistakes? Like because what would you recommend to others when maybe think, I mean, to be honest, it's always kind of two-sided because okay, it worked for some person in a specific situation and under specific conditions, but it's still, I think, yeah, quite useful as well, and interesting also to see how things change, how the perception changed, and kind of where the project got from where it was starting, really.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, cool, man. I think we've done enough damage today.
Cool.
Possibly, if you want, we can do a little bit of an outro. You can let everyone know where to find your game, where to find you, how to find any your project, follow you, etc. How to
Yeah.
support you, and all these different things, and just kind of give everyone a rundown on what you want them to do to find your project and support you.
Yeah, thank you. So the project is called Crux Diaries RPG. You can find it on Steam. I've got a page there. I'm on Twitter. It's Crux Diaries. I mean, I think I recently got a Blue Sky thing. So I think, yeah, mainly, I mean, yeah, I've got a YouTube channel as well where I'm putting the trailers, some development updates. I recently actually, I mean, I didn't list the video. I also put the old DOS game, that was done like more than 20 years ago. Because actually somebody asked me in Steam communities, because yeah, you can also, if you prefer Steam discussions, I'm always there, and I'm also trying to respond to people, especially if there's any constructive feedback. I'm really collecting ideas. I'm making notes of everything people are saying. Um, so yeah, whatever works with you. I mean, I hope also maybe you can include the links in the show
Absolutely.
notes in
Yeah.
on YouTube.
I'll have a
I'll
wish
send you the
list
links.
link. I'll have whatever
Yeah,
links you want me to
cool.
put up there,
Thanks.
I'll have in there for sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Just follow Wishlist because that's all the rave about trying to get Wishlist on Steam because obviously very hard to get noticed, very hard to get any attention because there's just literally, I don't know, dozens of games released every single day.
Mhm.
So yeah, make sure to, yeah, take a note of the project, and if you liked what you heard, yeah, and you're interested in something like this, yeah,
Sweet.
follow.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. It was fun. Like I said, I had fun talking about all sorts of different things, and
Thanks, yeah.
yeah, man,
Same here.
I'll definitely have you back when we launch a demo, or or
Yeah.
launch the game, or
Fingers
figure out
crossed.
where we're going. Or
Fingers crossed, we're not, it's not going to be one of the nuclear wars you were talking about
yeah,
that
yeah. I
puts
hope so.
everything.
God, I hope
Yeah.
so.
At least for the sake of launching a demo, yeah, let's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Please, no
really I
nuclear
really hope
war.
the
I need
world
a
won't,
demo to launch.
I hope, actually, honestly, I hope kind of next time we talk, the world will be in general in a better place than it is right now.
Agreed. 100% agreed. I can't agree with that more. Well, awesome. Thanks, man. I really
All
appreciate you
right.
being here.
Thank you.